KTBB Friday Morning News Time, 7:51. As we do every Friday, we check in with KTBB owner, General Manager Paul Gleiser with You Tell Me. What is on your mind, sir?
Good morning, Garth. We are sponsored by KE Cellars, Tyler's Old World Style Boutique Winery in the French Quarter on South Broadway across from the mall. You just heard the commercial. Here's an update. We're moving into the narrow end of the funnel on our trip to Rome, Sorrento, Pompeii, and Naples, November 24th. We're now down to the last 12 seats. This trip is just $19.92 per person, double occupancy, and if you've been thinking about joining my wife, Lee, and me as we return to our beloved Italy, now would be the time to act before you get left behind. Go to ktbb.com/world tour for the itinerary and booking information, and then sign up soon. It's the first trip on the KTBB World Tour, and Lee and I look forward to having you on board. NASA and the new Black Panthers Party come together to illustrate how far afield we have strayed. First, NASA. You may have heard this. Last month, NASA Administrator Charles Bolden gave an interview to the Arab TV network Al Jazeera in which he said,
"When I became the NASA Administrator, or before I became the NASA Administrator, he charged me with three things. One was he wanted me to help re-inspire children to want to get into science and math. He wanted me to expand our international relationships. And third, and perhaps foremost, he wanted me to find a way to reach out to the Muslim world and engage much more with dominantly Muslim nations to help them feel good about their historic contribution to science and engineering, science, math, and engineering."
Foremost, it's NASA's job to help people in the Muslim world feel good about themselves? I didn't know that. All this time, I thought NASA's job was to advance the causes of aeronautical research and space exploration. Silly me. I don't know that it's anybody's job in the U.S. government to advance the self-esteem of Muslim nations, but if it is, it sure as hell isn't NASA's. How far we have fallen. For $136 billion in today's dollars spread out over a decade in the 1960s, we put men on the moon. And in so doing, laid the predicate for personal computers, cellular telephones, robotic surgery, digital imaging, and countless other technologies that we take for granted every day. Contrast that with the $787 billion spent on a stimulus bill that didn't stimulate, and consider that while that money is being wasted, the last manned American space launch that you and I will likely ever see is on the schedule for February of next year. So much for Neil Armstrong's giant leap. Then there's the new Black Panthers Party. On Election Day 2008 in Philadelphia, members of the new Black Panthers, dressed in military garb, brandished nightsticks while shouting racial epithets outside a polling place. Department of Justice lawyers had an airtight case against them on voter intimidation charges when Attorney General Eric Holder intervened and ordered the charges dismissed. Lest you have any doubt about who we're dealing with here, here's a montage of what King Samir Shabazz, one of those charged, has had to say about his regard for white people and the rule of law.
I hate white people. All of them. We keep begging white people for freedom. No wonder we're not free. Your enemy cannot make you free, fool. You want freedom? You're going to have to kill some crackers. You're going to have to kill some of their babies.
Now, let me ask you, if you had this character dead to rights, would you give him a get-out-of-jail-free card? This story and the idiotic remarks of the NASA administrator tie together in this way. In this withering recession, businesses big and small have been forced to laser in on the things that each can do well and profitably. But the administration of this government has become so grandiose in its vision of itself as a transformative force in the world that it can't perform even its most basic functions, such as putting criminals in jail. Mr. President, no matter how many denizens NASA sends to the Middle East, they're never going to feel so good about themselves that they start liking us. And keeping us safe from criminals, including those that spew racial bile, is your first and most important job. As for the world, it will transform itself in its own good time. Meanwhile, if you would use your considerable rhetorical gifts to get these departments, the Department of Justice, NASA, and the U.S. government as a whole, back on task, we'd all be much obliged. That's my word. What's yours? Go to ktbb.com/youtellme, and you tell me. Call your spouse or a good friend right now while you're thinking about it. Make a date to meet at KE Cellars today after work. You've earned it. Go inside where it's cool year-round, because it has to be cool in a place where they're making wine, and ask them to try the 2007 Keepersall Estate Simeon, a cool, dry, refreshing white, or perhaps the K.E. Bushman's Witzen Rosé, a wine that looks like white Zinfandel but is much more interesting. For you red drinkers, I took the last bottles of the 2006 K.E. Cellars Cabernet, but you should try the 2007 vintage, which is just now coming into its own. Tell them I sent you, and they'll put the $1 tasting fee on my tab. Once you've picked a wine, get some fruit or a meat and cheese tray and repair to the seating area for some live music and some pleasant company with your spouse or your friends. If there is an oasis from the summer heat in East Texas, K.E. Cellars is it. You can do all of this because K.E. Cellars is a working winery. Try before you buy. No one leaves disappointed. K.E. Cellars, Tyler's old world-style boutique winery in the French Quarter on South Broadway across from the mall, and online at KECellars.com.